Hi, and welcome to episode number 45 of Basha's Thoughts. In this episode, I'm thinking about why we are here and how we can make our life more deeply satisfying. So, the initial thought is if you find out why you're here, will that somehow make it possible for you to potentially fulfill that purpose and become satisfied because of it? Thinking about this, there is a direction that we all want to move in. So we all want to move towards feeling better in some sense. Now, this may be very general and very different for people and for different moments in time. But we're all wanting to move towards greater happiness, whatever that happiness might be. At some points, it may look like peace, and this is what we crave. At other times, we might be craving excitement. And whatever it is, the sensation is that we want to move towards what feels better. It's a compass we have inside of us that tells us which direction to move in towards. This does not mean that we always move in that direction, and it doesn't mean that every choice we make will actually ultimately take us there, but it's a general direction that we have from the inside. Now, how do we make this happen? Well, by going by what we feel, we can get a lot of success. So if we're hungry, then we eat and we feel satisfied. And so if we're looking to satisfy ourselves in different ways, we can become happier. But of course, we know that if we take it too far and we really focus on satisfying our body or our particular desires or our particular instincts, well, that may take us onto a path that is not that deeply satisfying. It's a path where we might find greed and we're very attached to certain things. Now, that attachment brings a type of defensiveness. We have to defend our things. We have to maybe lie, cheat, and steal in order to try to satisfy our perceived needs. Or we might feel greater isolation. Well, we probably will if we are so defensive and always feeling that we need to defend ourselves. So this is a path that brings about problems. And these problems actually arise as soon as we define ourselves, who we are. Because who we are defines what we will then defend. So if we see ourselves as a human being, as a person, as the owner of this house, as whatever it is, that will define what it is that we wish to defend in a sense. So the idea of always doing what feels best works very well until you get to a definition of who you are, until you find a limitation in who you are. So if you were to understand yourself as limitless and see yourself as limitless, then always doing what feels best might actually be the most satisfying path. Now, what usually happens is that we say, well, I should not be selfish. I don't want to go down that path and become limited. I want something that is even more deeply satisfying to me. And so, this way we might find the path of service. And then our purpose is no longer to just satisfy ourselves, but actually to find ways in which we can serve others and even non-specific others, even the future others, so that we can make a better world for the people of the future, so that we can leave things better for whoever may come. Or we might be doing it for particular groups of people or particular persons. This idea of serving others does indeed bring a deeper form of satisfaction. And this is because we tend to feel more connected. We're not as isolated anymore. So it feels better to feel connected. It is better to feel love and connection, unity. This is aligned with who we are, more so than the isolation we might feel in satisfying our particular needs. And yet, this path of service may also lead us astray. We see this often in mothers who will tend to do everything for their children, and in many ways they will feel deeply satisfied, but sometimes they do not pay any attention to themselves. They forget who they are. They do not satisfy their own needs, and they might even get sick. And they live their life, in one sense, very happy, and in another way, feeling like there's something that's missing. And when their children leave, they feel very empty and a lack of purpose. You've probably heard this many times about the oxygen mask on the plane, that you're supposed to put it on your child or on a person who needs help only after you have put it on yourself. Because if you are drained, you will not have the energy to be able to help others. And so only focusing on others and a path of service where you are drained because you do not pay any attention to anything that you actually need. You might not even be aware of what you need. You might have trained yourself not to feel, not to even know what you want, because your desires are so far removed from your reality that you're not even aware of them. Well, maybe that's not the deeply satisfying life that we want. And so then we ask ourselves, if selfishness is not the way, and this generous way of being and serving that moves into almost self-denial is also not the way, what is the way? Well, many would say, well, you have to find a balance. You have to find a way of meeting your own needs, making sure that you're okay so that you can help everyone else, and focusing on serving others, but making sure that you're doing okay. And this is my question. Is this really the most satisfying way of living? Is it a balance that we're seeking, or is there actually something else? Perhaps you are not here for you, the person, the ego. Perhaps you are not even here for the others to help and serve them. Perhaps there is an even deeper meaning to all of this. In a way, I talked about this in episode 33, where we talked about goals, purposes, and meaning. See, when you find your purpose, that is like finding something to do. So you can be goal-oriented and you can work towards goal and say, I want to achieve this goal and that goal. Or you can be more purpose-oriented and say that, well, actually what's most important to me is who I am in terms of purpose. And so I might be a teacher. This is who I am. This is my purpose here. Or you might feel my purpose is to be a healer. Or my purpose is to inspire. or my purpose is dot, 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 whatever you might find. But all of these are action-oriented things to do in this world. Is there a way we can move beyond purpose and into meaning? Would that be even more satisfying? What does that mean? Well, this is the idea of moving up the pendulum. This is the idea of transcendence. So in this world, we do have dualities. We have extreme points. One such extreme point in this case is selfishness. The other extreme is abundant generosity to the point of denying yourself. So it is like a pendulum that swings from one end to the other. Now, if you explore it, then you learn about the different parts, and you learn what works, what doesn't work, why it works, why it doesn't work. So by experiencing being selfish and being overly generous and being somewhere in the middle, you can learn a lot. And in particular, you can learn the line that you're moving on, because the next phase is to find the direction that is perpendicular to this duality that you are exploring. And you cannot really find that direction if you're in a spot, if you're only very limited and you only know selfishness, or you only know extreme generosity and self-denial. Or even if you're in the middle, you haven't really fully explored the full line, and you might not really understand what perpendicular to it is, because you only have a point or a few points. And to go perpendicular is like moving up the pendulum. So you're moving up the string of the pendulum. And this is a completely different direction. And this is the direction of transcendence. And this is what I believe we are here to do. To always find transcendence. And the direction in which we are finding greater and greater satisfaction is this direction. It is the direction of transcendence. Then, what is perpendicular to this dimension of serving self and serving others? Well, it's related to the question that we started with. Why are you here? Perhaps you are not here for yourself, your body, your personality, your ego. Perhaps this is not for that purpose that you are here. Perhaps you are not here for others, for this other self, this other body, this other personality, those other instincts in some other person, perhaps. Perhaps you are not here for them. Perhaps you are here as the expression of the divine. Now, this is a different direction. This is a different intention. This is something that moves you out of the dimension of serving you and serving others. And this is aligned with who you truly are as the limitless being you are. You are beyond any person, any limitation. And this is why if you are living as that being, if you are living with the knowledge of being limitless, well, then you can follow this suggestion of doing what feels best, doing what feels better, and that will not lead us astray. So We are here as an expression of the divine. We are here as the infinite, expressing the divine, expressing the infinite. How do we use this? What does this mean? How can we apply this knowledge in our seemingly limited lives? I know how to serve my selfish needs, and that's not so complicated. I can figure out what it means to serve others. That I can figure out how to do in different ways. Although sometimes if I deny myself, I will feel that limitation inside of me. And yet if I focus on the others, well, I will feel a little bit more satisfied in my service. But how do I use this idea of knowing that I am the infinite and I am here to have an expression, to create an expression for the divine? How do I use this? And how does it change what I do? So let's take an example. I might be working as a waitress. I might be serving coffee. And I might be serving coffee because I need the money I need to survive. And so if I work because I need the money for myself, because I want to buy things for myself, well, then that will be my intention. That will be me living in the more, perhaps, let's say, selfish part of the spectrum of duality. Now, I might also be working as a waitress, and I might be serving coffee, and I might be serving coffee with the intention of actually serving others. And my focus might be every day on making sure that everyone gets the best cup of coffee. And when I live from that intention, when I focus on the others every day in my work, well, I might still get paid, but my focus will be on service. And usually I will feel a little bit more satisfied, although probably a bit drained as well. So that might be my way of focusing on service. How do you focus on meaning? How do you focus on being an expression of the divine? Irrespective of where you are on the pendulum, whether you're in the selfish or generous part of the spectrum, the divine is perpendicular to it in a sense. So you are just as divine in any piece or part of the spectrum. So in a sense, there is no judgment. You are not less worthy as a selfish person than as a generous person. That does not exist. Instead, here, you also use intention. So you had the intention of making money or the intention of serving. Now, your intention is focused around the divine. And so one way of using this, one way of making this happen is to, before you do something, you set an intention. You give yourself a reason to do something, a reason for doing what you are about to do. So it's not a justification after you've done something. That is not a conscious way of living your life. That is a way of automatically following your perhaps instincts that you have programmed into this particular body and mind, and then trying to find justifications so that you feel a little bit better about your choices. Now, the idea of intention is that you start by saying, okay, I'm about to do something. This is a choice I'm making now. Let me find a good reason for doing this in particular. What is my intention? And then, when you find the highest intention you can think of, you do whatever it is you're about to do. And how do you know to find the highest intention? The idea is to live from the space of who you are. It is when you're living from that space that you get access to higher and higher types of intentions. It is when you know yourself as all. It is when you know yourself as the limitless, when you identify yourself beyond all of these constraints that we have of a body or a mind. It is when you spend more and more time as you, for instance, in meditation, in deep meditation where you're going beyond and always seeing that you are more than whatever it is that comes up, whatever experience that comes up. That experience arises in you, is you. And so the more time we spend in that space, the more we automatically tend to identify as that and not as a particular confined human, say. And then we get access to higher and higher intentions. Then we move past defensiveness and judgment in an automatic way, not by imposing anything, and in an open way that is expansive and not constraining in any sense, because sometimes ethical judgment or moral judgments can feel constraining. It can feel like someone telling you, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should be more giving. Where maybe you have your piece of chocolate and you don't want to share it and you've wanted to have it and someone tells you now you have to share it with someone else and you feel, no, I don't really want to, but I kind of have to, and you feel guilty if you don't. All of that play doesn't play out. Instead, the movement towards greater generosity is an automatic movement because you identify as everyone. And so you automatically will want what is best for all. And that does not mean just for the others and not you as your body, or just for you and not the others. So it is an automatic movement into serving all, and you get greater and greater inspirations for your intentions the more time you spend as you, the limitless you, which you spend by spending time moving beyond every thought, every feeling, and including all of these feelings and all of these thoughts as part of you, but they all happen in you. It is like finding space, being able to access the space in which all the magic appears, and you becoming the magician. That is even more satisfying than serving a particular person here. And interestingly enough, the more you tend to set your intentions and the higher intentions you are able to find before you do whatever it is you do, even when it is things that you think are probably not really the best choices, but you kind of really want to do it anyway. Maybe it's that cookie that you're kind of wanting to have anyway. although you're kind of feeling guilty about it and not thinking that this is the best idea for your body, even with those choices, if before you have that cookie you can set a higher intention, then what you will notice happening over time is that this intention will bring about a deeper form of satisfaction. And it will, in fact, be so much more satisfying than any addiction you could have. And so your addictions will tend to not be as prominent, not as satisfying, not as attractive as finding the amazing intention. Because that intention will bring expansion. And one thing to notice is that if the intention you are setting is in any way constricting you inside, then see if you can find a way around that. Because that will very often be your mind telling us something along the lines, well, you should not have that cookie because it's not good for you, and you're starting to feel guilty, and that guilt is constraining. So if there's ever a constriction inside of that intention, see if you can find an intention that really just feels super liberating, expansive, the best for all. And when you find that and then do with that intention, over time you will notice your addictions falling away. And maybe after some time you look at the cookie and you think, you know what? I'm not even interested in having it. I'm honestly not even the least bit interested in having it. I have something that is much more satisfying. And so how does this change what you do? Initially, it doesn't necessarily have to change what you do. You just infuse things with a different intention. And over time, it will change what you do. And it will certainly change how you feel about things. So this is a way of moving into meaning and not just purpose. This is a way of including purpose and goals as fun projects, but not the reason why you're here. You're not here for your personal self. You're not here for everyone else. You are here as the divine expressing itself through all. And when you live as that, when you identify as that, then everything becomes deeply, deeply satisfying. And to move in that direction, we can start spending more time as ourselves to find that less limited us. And we can start using intentions before we do things. And then even play a game of trying to invent the highest intention. What is the intention that makes me feel amazingly expanded as I do this thing that I'm going to do, that I'm just about to do? And then do it with that intention and see what happens as you repeat it over and over. Notice how your life changes, how your level of satisfaction changes, and then how your actions automatically start to change. So these were just some thoughts I had around why we are here and how we can have a more deeply satisfying experience. Perhaps perhaps I'll talk to you in another podcast episode. Take care.